the relation to vehicles and movement and automotive, and we're very fortunate to have with us Maeve Mason and Landon Masters from the SC Office of Regulatory Staff, the Energy Office. And Maeve used to be with DHEC in air quality. That's how I met Maeve originally, and so she really has brought kind of a different focus as it relates here, and we're real glad to have the two of them with us. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. I'm trying to keep myself on track of time here. So. Thank you for the opportunity. We're really excited to be here. Landon and I are going to kind of take turns addressing what we were asked to speak about today. So following in line with the kind of concept for today's meeting, we were asked to talk about transportation. I will say real quickly, we have a lot of interest in a lot of the other topics. Act 236 is one that's being talked about with our office right now, in a sense related to energy policy. But I'll try to stay on top. Transportation. So we were asked to speak today primarily because within the Office of Regulatory Staff exists the Energy Office, and within the Energy Office exists Palmetto Clean Fuels Coalition. We are one of 100 or so clean cities coalitions throughout the country. And I'll show a map in just a moment, but essentially the Clean Cities programs are Department of Energy programs. We work with the Vehicle Technology Office, and the mission is to ensure that United States security and prosperity by addressing energy, environmental, and nuclear challenges through transformation, science, and technology. That's kind of the larger DOE mission. The Clean Cities was established in response to the Energy Policy Act in 1992, and it's a really cool program, and that is a community-based program, and we work with partnerships with private and public entities to essentially reduce dependence on petroleum and promote energy efficiency in the transportation sector. So it's threefold. We reduce where we can, we replace, and then we also eliminate. And the fuels on the side there are actually those that are specified in the Energy Policy Act. So essentially, we work with these fuels to promote efficiencies and reduce petroleum consumption. This is a graphic of the United States, and again, kind of shows you where the Clean Cities folks exist in the nation. There are about 100 or so, and we represent about 82% of the total U.S. population. Palmetto Clean Fuels is slightly interesting in the sense that we are representing the entire state. So a lot of these Clean Cities coalitions represent a particular geographic or metro area. We are a statewide coalition, so that's unique. And the other thing that's slightly unique is the fact that we're housed within a state agency. Others are kind of nonprofit organizations. Some work within COGS. Others work with the American Lung Association. So it's kind of runs the gamut, if you will. Again, Palmetto Clean Fuels is statewide. This gives you a little bit of stats in terms of, these are 2015, so I apologize, they're a little dated. We need to update our slides. But we work again with the various alternative fuels to kind of promote reduction in petroleum and increase in fuel usage of alternative, or the use of alternative fuels. In total, the Clean Cities strategy is to cut petroleum use by 2.5 billion gallons by the year 2020. And so we work hard to collect data from our partners to then send to the Department of Energy that kind of tries to track that reduction in petroleum use. And so far, I think we're doing a pretty good job within the state in following those metrics and tracking how well we're doing. Clearly, we do that in quantifying greenhouse gas emission reductions as well. So again, I think the really neat thing about the Clean Cities program is it's local partnerships, and it really is about building relationships. A lot of times we say we're just the liaisons between connecting you as a business or industry or even a resident with a program that may benefit you. So we do a good job in working with our stakeholders. We're completely voluntary. Some Clean Cities organizations charge memberships dues. We do not. It's completely free, and we try to do a lot of different events. Training opportunities, we try to at least have one quarterly. I'm going to do a little plug for one here in the upstate. The end of August, the 29th, we'll be doing one related to propane usage. It's auto gas answers, and it'll be here, and it'll have a focus with the Petroleum Education Resource Council on adopting petroleum as an alternative fuel and its use cases. We have worked with Proterra as well. We had a quarterly event there, and it was focused on electrification. We did a tour of their facility. So we do try to kind of be fuel neutral. We are agnostic when it comes to a particular fuel. We like to promote them all. A couple of things we've been working on, and we partner with DHEC a good bit to promote their B-squared partnership, both for schools and businesses. We also, I think, we're really proud of the fact that we worked with the Department of Transportation, and I think it was November 2016? Gosh, time flies. 2016, we worked with the Department of Transportation to have several corridors throughout the state, the interstates, designated as alternative fuel corridors. The cool thing about that is we were the first state in the southeast to have the signs placed along the interstate. And there's an example there. So hopefully you've maybe seen some of these as you've been out and about. There's a little bit of confusion around them. They are meant to describe where someone could use a particular fuel along the interstate and have some reassurance that they could find the appropriate infrastructure. They don't necessarily show at exits, for instance, where you could find that infrastructure. However, we're working with the Department of Transportation to take that next step into a pilot program and put the signs at the exit so people know where that infrastructure exists. We do try to acknowledge the folks who've done great work. We just presented Cat Bus with the Green Fleet Leader Award. Try to acknowledge the good work that our partners are doing in terms of their work to adopt alternative fuels. They've done a fabulous job electrifying their bus fleet. We also try to identify funding opportunities whenever we can, either at the federal level and kind of relaying that there are Department of Energy grants available. We also administer a few low-interest loan programs through our office, Concert Fund, and mini grants. And we've got some information at our table about that. I won't spend a lot of time on that. And then, of course, we collect and track the data. And one thing we're finding is that as Clean Cities organizations, we're sometimes the only entity in the state that's tracking that level of transportation data. And we're still not doing the best job that we can, but we do try to collect that data so that we can kind of relay to folks kind of how important transportation is. You may say, why is this Clean Cities program in the energy office? Well, 40% of energy 40% of the energy that's used in the country and in our state, I think it may be closer to 30, comes from transportation. So there's a very distinct link, and we try to make that for folks whenever we can. I won't talk a lot about this. This is, again, the grant program. We've got some literature in the back. It can be used for building upgrades, lighting retrofits, but also transportation projects, so the incremental cost to convert to an alternative fuel. What we're really here today to talk about, and I'm going to turn this over to Landon, is we worked with Piedmont Health Foundation and GreenLink to develop a tool called the Transportation Fuel Action Tool to try to bring to bear to folks like you in this room who want to maybe consider alternative fuels or are looking for ways to reduce petroleum, reduce costs associated with transportation. And so we worked with them to develop this tool that takes into account a lot of other tools that we have at our disposal as a result of being a Clean Cities program, but they're kind of complicated and they can get sticky and sometimes they're overwhelming. So we wanted to develop this tool so essentially it would be easier for folks to use. And we're going to walk through what this tool does and show it to you live on our website. But I'm going to turn it over to Landon now.
Yes, so thank you for having us. Once again, my name is Landon Masters. I'm the coordinator for Palmetto Clean Fuels Coalition. and Clean Transportation and Communications Specialist for the South Carolina Energy Office. So like Maeve talked about, this is our transportation fuel action tool that is available for free to anyone that is looking at adopting an alternative fuel or looking at that as an option. It includes a lot of resources, and Maeve touched on this as well, that we pull from the federal level, which is kind of the background data portion, which can often seem overwhelming, and it's a lot of numbers on the screen, a lot of colors going on, and their use book is probably half an inch thick. So it's a very federal looking thing, but it came from the national lab. So what that means is that it's data that is trusted and universal, and that if someone's questioning that data, it is cited from a trustworthy source, which can often be skewed if you are working with a vendor or if you're working with someone else. So that way you can do your own analysis and say, I've used this data that comes from the federal level, that pulls from trustworthy data sources to verify cost savings, emission savings, things of that nature. So I'll walk very briefly through this, which are the main steps to the tool. But basically, it's an Excel-based tool. So if you have Excel, you can use this. And it includes, obviously, directions. But the first step is to conduct a fleet audit, which you may be wondering, what does that mean? We all know what energy audits are. We talked a little bit about that earlier today. But a fleet audit is looking at your fleet, looking at what you have, what you're currently using in terms of gasoline or diesel use, and what that is actually emitting. And the federal tool that this is pulling from is the A-Fleet that you can see over here on that right-hand side. It's an acronym for a very long name, but it essentially takes what you currently have and spits out, here's what you're currently emitting from your fleet, here's what your usage looks like right now, and then allows you to compare that with the acquisition of new vehicles and what you would be saving in terms of cost savings. So that first step is to conduct the fleet audit, look at what you currently have, look at utilization, things of that nature. The second step is to actually take what you put into that A-Fleet and rank it based on a couple of different numeric criteria points that we have put in these three columns right here. So you can see it lists all of the fuels, including gasoline and diesel, so it's not swaying just towards only alternative fuels. You may find that gasoline is the answer, and maybe an alternative fuel isn't something you should look at. So in this analysis, it looks at your payback or ROI, looking at money, how much is it going to save you? That's oftentimes the biggest thing that people are worrying about, is saving money. The infrastructure, that's a lot of the issue right now with chicken and egg sort of thing, is the infrastructure there to adopt the fuel. So looking what's already readily available or could be available to you, and that pulls from data that we have as well. And then the greenhouse gas emissions, so ranking it based on what is going to be emitting the least amount. So obviously this may differ depending on what fuel and what your use is. So you basically take that, and it's a Likert scale. It's you looking at that data and saying, this is the least, this is the best, here let's number them that way. Step 3, these are all on a Likert scale as well. There are some things that can't be quantified, and that's what we try to take into account in this tool, is the motivation behind things. Oftentimes there are boards that make decisions about transit, or decisions about what fleet vehicles you're going to buy, and it may not always be about those numbers or the emission savings or something of that nature. It could be about the public acceptance. What's the public acceptance like in your area? Do they have bad perceptions because of something that's happened in the past? But it allows a board to sit down and put a number to that, and in this Likert scale. Political will. So what are your legislators or the politics in your area kind of pushing towards? The economic development aspects. So do you have a business in your area that is manufacturing something that is going to increase the economies of scale for your for your area. And then the importance of fleet diversity. So is it important to have more than one fuel in your fleet? Oftentimes, power goes out. How do you get petroleum at the gas station to get it out of the ground? That's using power. Looking at electricity, do you have storage on site? So it's when you're going to use one fuel over the other, and is that very important to you to have a multitude of fuels? So looking at that as an option to rank things. And then it'll spit out your results. It'll spit out a number that ranks these fuels in order. So you do this analysis, and then theoretically you get an answer. You can sit down with the board, say you're a fleet manager. You can do all the background data, do the fleet audit, do the reliability of the infrastructure, all those kind of numerical things, and then have your board sit down and do this motivational analysis. Allow them to get involved in it, and then
you can have individual board members.
Individual board members, yeah.
And compare.
So it's kind of very fluid in the way that we put it together to allow it to be in a lot of different use cases, but still incorporate those sorts of things that are opinionated and not just based on numbers. So we have a lot of information available on our website, which is combothinkfuels.org. The tool is actually located at /TAT. And we have some of the DHEC fact sheets on there relating to air quality emissions. That was a big thing, we're using all these acronyms, PM, all those kind of things, and sometimes the board members don't know what that means. These are readily available fact sheets that you can print off, bring to them, show them the importance of these sorts of things. We also have some testimonials down there as well. We have a one-pager out on our table. So I'm going to
We're going to do a live demo.
really quick just to show you. Oh, look. So go there. This is our website where it's located. And as I said, it's just an Excel tool. So you can see we have the link here to that AFIC document, which I won't open up right now because it is a pretty hefty document. But I'll go to our tool. Open that up. So you'll see it's just an Excel-based tool that has these tabs down here at the bottom. So that's the directions. And then this is talking about the fleet audit and what you should be doing there. On this fleet analysis, when you input any of the data points, it'll total it up here, and then obviously at the end, gives you that final evaluation. So it is fairly simple. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. But
all the information is linked together, so as you go from one tab to another, it auto-populates. So again, at the end, you'll have your number, which will rank the fuel options as they're presented to you.
Yeah. So we have all these on our website. We also have kind of a background report that shows you, because this was a part of a grant from the U.S. Department of Energy, our Clean Cities grant funding that we get each year. And this was our major project that we completed last December. And you can see some of the partners down there at the bottom that we worked with, and they were primarily here in the upstate. So we were excited to work with them.
We kind of glossed over it, but actually this project was born from a chance meeting with the Piedmont Health folks. We work with Greenlink a good bit as well at the Transportation Association of South Carolina's workshop or conference that they did on Health Summit. So it's kind of combining air quality and health and transportation. And we thought this is kind of a niche that market, and not a lot of people draw all these correlations. It's not necessarily always that intuitive. So we built this tool as a means to kind of help folks do that, as well as just, again, be an easy tool that anybody can use that makes it really, hopefully, appeal, something that's easily incorporated into what you do on a daily basis and not hard to use.
And we didn't go as much into the different types of fuels, but we do have all of that information here on our website about all of the types of alternative fuels and the locations of where there are fueling stations. There's a pretty cool map from the national labs that they keep updated, that we pull all of our data from for where those locations are. So it includes electric stations, propane stations.
We actually help populate the data as well. All the Clean Cities coalitions do around the state. And there are phone apps, so you can have it on your phone and it can tell you where the nearest electric charging station is.
Yeah. So thank you guys. We'll take questions.
Let's grab the microphone.
Fuels, like under electric, is that considering what the actual generation of that electricity source is? And I assume that would be variable, so if it's coming from solar or coal, those are going to have different emission standards. Is that factored into that tool when it spits out that emission?
Yeah, it actually does. They take into account different regions and regional approaches to energy generation, and then you can actually change that in there. It actually changes, I think, automatically based on you put in your city or your county and your state, and it'll change that region.
That's part of the A-Fleet tool, actually, that was built by our Argonne National Lab. If y'all haven't checked that out, it can look, like I said, kind of overwhelming. We run A-Fleet analysis for people. A lot of times they just give us their basic fleet data. So model year, miles, annual miles, how much gas or diesel you're consuming annually. And we can put all that information into the tool, and it will provide you with the ROI for a particular fuel, and it takes all of that into account. It is a phenomenal tool if you've never looked at it.
Yeah, and I'll add too, I didn't say this, if anyone has a fleet or any fleet data that they need help with looking at, we are available to help with all of that. It's not something that you have to do on your own. We have been trained in how to use it. We have resources too at the national labs and the Department of Energy that we can go on to.
Other questions? Wonderful. So I have a question